Welcome to Carly Tackles, making a flippable, sturdy workbench with a flip-up side and removable drawer. To make our flip-up side, we'll be using 2x4s, a 1/4 inch thick pegboard, and a 1/2 inch thick plywood. I cut 6 pieces of 2x4. 4 of them will be used for the outside frame, and 2 of them will be inserts that will help support the pegboard. I'm currently using the router table to cut a 1/2 inch groove into 2x4s so that we can slide the 1/2 inch sheet of plywood all the way through. If you do not have a router table, you can use a router and a straight router bit to cut this groove. Now I'm using the router table to cut a 1/4 inch groove at the very top. This is what we'll be using to set the pegboard onto. You will need to make the 1/2 inch and 1/4 inch grooves on all 4 pieces of the 2x4s for the frame. Our 2 middle inserts will need a 1/4 inch groove cut down on the top on each side. You will also need to cut a 1/2 inch tab on each end of the middle inserts. Now it's time to assemble your frame and run the 1/2 inch sheet of plywood through that groove that we cut out. I used 2 screws on the ends and a countersink drill bit to assemble my frame. I figured out where I wanted my 2 middle inserts to go, and I clamped them into place. I have yet to screw them into position. I also glued 2 pieces of wood, one on each side, to direct the dust to the middle. And you can see I made a slight hole in my insert before I screwed it down, so that way the dust has a chute to kind of go through. Now I'm attaching my middle inserts to my 1/2 inch sheet of plywood. I already pre-drilled the holes and I'm inserting the screws from underneath, so there's no screws on the top of the workbench. Next, I'm measuring where I want the dog holes to be drilled out and the flip-up side. These will be the same size dog holes that I did on the top workbench. These will also be spaced 3 inches from the outside and then 4 inches from each other. I'm using a Ryobi hammer drill and a 3/4 inch spade bit from Diablo to drill the holes. I'm not concerned with tear out since the bottom will not be seen or used. I'm doing a quick check with the pegboard to make sure that it fits in the grooves and lines up correctly, and it does. I'm not installing the pegboard at this time because I still need to sand and stain the side. Now it's time to attach our legs to the underside of the table. I'm using a surface mounted hinge so that it can be as flush as possible. I am using a self-centering drill bit, which is designed for hinges, and then the Ryobi impact driver to drive in the screws. Once you have your first leg secured to the bottom of the table, then you can start work on the second leg from the other end. You do need the first one installed so that way you can line up the legs so they don't overlap or hit each other. I'm ripping a 2x4 in half so I can use it for the underneath side to help give the legs some stabilization, and also use it for my straps to help secure the legs in place so they don't bang around. I'm using a plastic, I believe it's duct strap, that I had lying around the garage, which is great because it has multiple holes that I can just slide screws in and then attach snaps. If you don't have this, you can easily use fabric or nylon straps or whatever you feel will secure this in place. Once you have the end secured to the new support beam that we just installed, next you can run it over the legs and determine the length and cut off what you don't need. At the other end, I installed these snaps. It came in a kit with the screws, snaps, and devices to connect them. I'm installing that second half of that 2x4 I split. This should add some support to the table and the plywood. Off camera, I drilled a hole into the side for a vacuum attachment hose, so that way we can suck out the dust that falls. One last thing before we take it all apart and sand and stain is we are now attaching the hinges to the side of the table. This hinge will be attached also to the frame of the current workbench. And again, I'm using a self-centering drill bit to pre-drill the holes and make sure that my screws line up in the direct center of these hinges. Now these hinges are a tad bigger than the other ones I use because it does need to support the weight. Make sure you read the weight limits on your hinges that you pick out. You may notice that the side table is up on blocks, and I'll continue to insert more blocks so that I get it to the desired height. That way I'm not lifting it up while trying to install it. A quick test run to make sure everything still works and moves when it's attached. Now it's time to take it all apart and sand and stain. Now I ended up using black cherry on the top and black for my legs. Once everything is dry, you can start placing your pegboards and installing them. I am pre-drilling the holes into that 1/2-inch groove that's cut out into the 2x4 and then driving in screws. I'm installing the 2 snap screws into the side of the board, making sure that they line up with my snaps. I'm using wood scraps to help hold that side table up against the workbench, and I keep adding scrap pieces until I get it to my desired height. This way I don't have to support the weight of the table, and I don't have to worry about it pulling on the screws of the hinges as I install them. I removed a few of the top pieces so I can give it a good test. I wanted to grab my level to do the final checks, make sure that it's level and that it's the same height as the workbench. Thanks for watching part 3 of the Workbench series. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. If you'd like to see other videos similar or to catch the next one in the series, please subscribe to my channel. Carly tackles DIY, tools and gadgets, tips and tricks. Don't forget to hit the bell so you get notified when I release new content.